Storytime about how my husband hired a really hot assistant and now I want him to fire her, but he won't. Am I the asshole? Disclaimer, this is not my Storytime. She then waltzed into my husband's office and tells him that I'm there. My husband quickly came out, almost running, and I asked him if everything was okay. That's when he said, yes, I just wanted to introduce you to my new assistant. Her name is Anna. Anna and I shook hands and I could feel that her palms were sweaty. That's when I knew something was up. My husband told her that she could leave for the day since he was going to be gone for a few hours. And guess what? She insisted on staying until he got back. And it's like she was doing it all because I was there. When my husband and I finally got into the car, I told him that I wanted him to fire her. He started to laugh and asked me why. I told him that the way she was dressed was incredibly inappropriate and that it looked like she was about to go party with all the makeup and hair that she had on. And of course, he told me I was overreacting and that he wouldn't fire her. Then he kissed me and reassured me that he wasn't even attracted to her. I asked him why he hired her and he told me that she was really smart and fast. Then I told him that if he didn't fire her, that him and I would have problems. He got in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Part 3 is up. Part 3, am I the asshole for wanting my husband to fire his hot assistant? This camera is not my story time. It's on my Instagram. After the second time I told him to fire her, he once again said no and got in a really bad mood for the rest of the day. That's when I told him that it was clear that she had a thing for him and that she was obviously dressing up and putting on all that makeup and hair just for him. He told me that she had a boyfriend and that she wasn't interested in him like that. But I don't believe it at all. You know, women's intuition? From the moment I met her, I got the feeling she was trying to show off her body and her palms were sweaty as in she was nervous. That's when I decided I would go to my husband's office every single day. And guess what? I decided to dress up too. I put on a sexy outfit to pick up my husband the following day, and she was dressed in the exact same way. Super tight leggings, crop top, and showing off cleavage. Her hair and makeup were done again. As soon as she saw me coming into the office, she gave me a really dirty look. I asked her if anything was wrong and she said no. I couldn't help myself and I told her that the way she looked at me was weird. Then she apologized and told me that she didn't mean anything by it. My husband came out of his office and told me that Anna, his assistant, had already brought him lunch and that he didn't need to go to lunch with me. I was furious. I gave my husband a kiss and went home. I insisted once again that he needed to fire her later and he said no. So guess what I did? I got myself a really hot personal trainer. Of course, my husband got really jealous. I told him that I wouldn't stop working out with him until he fires his assistant. He thinks I'm being terrible for wanting him to fire her, but I don't trust that girl one bit. And I can't say I trust my husband 100%. Am I the asshole? Anyway, my trainer has been flirting with me hardcore. I'm planning on making my husband as jealous as possible. Bye.
My crush wouldn't date me because I was fat, so I lost the weight. My name is Elizabeth. I'm currently 17 years old and I'm a junior in high school. So we're just gonna go back in time for a little bit and explain everything. So I come from a very heavy-set family. My mom was about 300 pounds, my dad 500, and my brother 200. For his age, that was extremely bad. But I was the only skinny one in the family for a long period of time. My mom didn't like this, so she would overfeed me. But this didn't affect my weight until later on. In preschool, I met this boy, Liam. Liam was a very attractive kid. Everyone had a crush on him, even some boys in preschool. But I was his best friend, because we got along so well, and he thought I was different. So around elementary school and middle school, I gained a couple of pounds due to my mom, and he always defended me and was on my side whenever people would make fun of me. So I vowed and promised myself when we get to high school, I would confess to him. So freshman year, I got tired of waiting, and in front of the whole class, I confessed to him my feelings. And the look on his face was absolutely repulsive. I wanted to die. You will not believe what happens next. Come back for part 2. My crush didn't date me because I was fat, so I lost the weight, part 2. So I confessed to him that I was in love with him in front of the entire class, and his face was horrified. He just stared at me in pure disgust, and everyone around me was laughing. I looked around and I looked at him because I was confused, because he usually defended me when people were calling me fatty or ugly or this and that. And he just stood there in shock and didn't know what to do, I guess. I ended up crying and running out of the room. He stopped talking to me for 2 weeks after that. I messaged him and asked him why he rejected me. He said it was because I was too fat. I was so upset, but at the time, I understood where he was coming from, I guess. We stopped being friends after that, until I befriended some girl. Her name was Zoe. She was a pretty well-known girl at school, and she was really good for her makeup, fashion taste, and her body most of all. She asked me if I wanted a makeover, just for her video, and I agreed. So she took me out to the mall and she bought me $4,000 worth of clothing. And you will not believe what else happened next. Follow. My crush rejected me because I was fat, so I lost the weight, part 3. So this popular girl Zoe took me on a shopping spree for about $4,000, but the only problem was that the clothing was like in a small and medium. And I was currently an extra large, top and bottom. I couldn't fit these things, so she gave me a challenge. She said, lose 80 pounds by this certain time point, and I'll give you all the clothes and a makeover. So I said, okay. I trained for months and months, put myself on a really strict calorie deficit. Some days I wouldn't eat, but I ended up getting down to the goal weight. I was a small for the most part, but I could wear a medium if I wanted to. So she gave me all the clothes, did my hair and makeup really nice, brought me to school the next day, and I was the center of attention. Liam actually came up to me. But honestly, now that I knew my self-worth and I felt better about myself, I didn't even want him. I had my options. Why have one boy when you can have 6 that do stuff for you, buy stuff for you, and care for all your needs? Do you think this girl made the right decision by rejecting Liam in the end? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to follow if you enjoy story times like this. Want your story time heard? Feel free to submit it to the link.
I the asshole for getting a teacher fired when she wouldn't let my daughter eat in class? My 47 female daughter, 13 female, is type 1 diabetic and sometimes hypoglycemic. Due to this, we set up a 504 that says she can eat a snack in class whenever needed along with other accommodations. At one point, one of her new teachers denies her a snack while hypoglycemic. She nearly passes out, but in the next class she's in, the teacher has enough common sense to let her eat a snack before passing out at school. When she told me, I immediately called the teacher. When she called back, I lectured her and told her that she needed to let my daughter eat a snack when needed. She says it's not allowed, but I tell her that due to my daughter's 504, she's legally required to give my daughter an exception. Am I the asshole for getting a teacher fired when she wouldn't let my daughter eat in class? I said due to my daughter's 504, she's legally required to give my daughter an exception to that rule. Before hanging up, I tell her that if she does this again, I'll contact the principal and let him know. Keep in mind, I also recorded this call on my husband's phone, by the way. A month goes by and the same thing happens again, and I request a meeting with the principal and my husband plays back the call between me and the teacher. I tell him she's done this twice and needs to have a talk with her. Turns out, he actually fired her for ADA violations. I know this because I ran into her at Publix. She told me I got her fired over some stupid snacks and I need to stop raising an entitled brat. I walked away. Am I the asshole for not wanting my disabled sister at my wedding? My sister Anna, 21, is special needs. She has severe autism, and while she is verbal, most of her communication is physical, like sign language. This is due to social discomfort, but she does speak around family though and has pretty bad cognitive skills. She can't comprehend boundaries and lives with our parents so they can best watch her. I'm getting married in 3 months. We planned a simple wedding and reception at my fiance Michael's parents' barn and farm. I sent out invitations last week and I asked that Anna not come. I asked this because Anna has an issue with touching Michael and trying to kiss him. Am I the asshole for not wanting my disabled sister at my wedding? Anna has an issue with touching Michael and trying to kiss him. At times, Anna would try and grab Michael's hand, try to lean and kiss him, or would have a really bad shutdown if she wasn't allowed to be directly next to him. We've tried speaking to her, but there's only so much we can do when she doesn't really understand. I told my parents I just want one day for Michael to be my partner and not Anna's comfort person. They called me selfish and asked how I expected them to agree to something like this. They said Anna's disabled and she may never experience a wedding of her own, and while I have Michael for probably the rest of our lives, she'll have no one. And that Michael and I can be more understanding to the reality of her life. I feel like a total ass. Am I the asshole for locking myself and my newborn in the guest bedroom away from my wife? My daughter's 2 weeks old and I have barely held her since she was born. My wife constantly has her. When I go to hold her, my wife starts crying hysterically until I give her back. She said she was anxious that something would happen to our daughter and that's why she felt the need to hold her so close. No matter how much I tried to reassure her, she just wouldn't let up. I practically begged her just to let me hold her so my wife could shower, eat, and care for herself, but nothing worked. I felt like I was losing precious bonding time with my daughter, so I did what I thought I had to do. My wife fell asleep on the sofa with our child. I took her, went to the guest bedroom, and I locked the door. Then my wife woke up. Am I the asshole for locking myself and my newborn in the guest room away from my wife? My wife fell asleep on the sofa with our child. I took her, went to the guest bedroom, and locked the door. My wife woke up shortly after, very upset of course that our daughter wasn't with her. She soon realized I was in the guest room and begged me to open the door. She was crying, kicking, and screaming. I didn't open it and spent a good couple hours with our daughter in there. I got a call from my mother-in-law cussing me out. She said I shouldn't be taking a newborn from her postpartum mother and other things like that. My wife has been furious with me and won't speak, and I'm just so frustrated because I really wanted to spend quality time with my child. But I can see that maybe that wasn't the right way to do it. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for not giving my brother $15,000? Me and my brother grew up extremely close. When he turned 18, he got sent to prison for 5 years. I would visit, but he wanted no relationship with me. When he was released, he would not reach out and I gave up. I'm now married, have a daughter on the way, and work in the government. My brother lives with my parents, does not have a job, and spends most of his days drinking. A few months ago, he texted me asking if we could meet at a local restaurant. We met, and he asked if I could give him $2,000 to help get him back on his feet. The only thing I asked was that if I gave the money, we could build on being brothers again. He agreed, and I wrote him a check. He calls me and tells me that he needs more money and that my parents kicked him out of the house. Am I the asshole for not giving my brother $15,000? I wrote him a check for $2,000. He calls me and tells me he needs more money. My parents kicked him out of the house and he needs a place to live. I asked him what he used the money I gave him on, and he told me that he used it on alcohol and clubs. He then asked if I could give him $15,000 and help him find a place. I told him no, that was a lot of money to ask for. I offered to help him find a place that he can afford if he wants. He hangs up on me and sends me a long text that I have always been the favorite son and that he never wants to talk to or hear from me. I tried to reach out, but he blocked my number. Am I the asshole for not giving him $15,000? Am I the asshole for telling my neighbor that her husband isn't the catch she thinks he is? I, 28 female, recently attended a neighborhood barbecue. This mommy influencer started asking me about my love life in front of the other neighbors. Now, this woman is 35 and a decade younger than her husband. When I told her I wasn't interested in getting married or into a committed relationship, she made comments saying that she was worried I would end up bitter and an old cat lady. She literally insinuated that being easy is what's keeping me from finding a life partner. Then she said if I found a therapist and sorted out my issues, I would also end up with a catch like her husband. I got really angry and pretty much humiliated her. Am I the asshole for telling my neighbor that her husband isn't a catch? She insinuated that being easy is what's keeping me from finding a life partner. And that if I saw a therapist, I would also end up with a catch like her husband. I got angry and pretty much humiliated her and her husband in front of the other neighbors. I said her husband isn't much of a catch since he pretty much cheated on his first wife and abandoned his kids from his first marriage. And that their picture-perfect Instagram family isn't going to fool me into idealizing them. I said ending up with a guy like her husband was my worst nightmare and that her choice of men is unfortunate. She left crying and wants me to apologize. Am I the asshole for not cooking for my husband until he talks to me? Would that be unethical? My husband and I have not been communicating. Less than a month after getting married, he no longer sleeps in the bed with me and spends all his time in his room, which was initially a guest bedroom. I only see him at meal times. When I ask why, he doesn't give me a real answer, and his answers are just because I just want to, I don't know. I'm desperate to have a real conversation, and one idea I have is to stop cooking for him until he asks me to talk. But I worry about his health if I stop cooking. He's lazy and there's no way he cooked for himself. I do give him an allowance because he's unemployed to buy ready meals, but he has never once been willing to go to the store. So I'm scared he won't eat at all.
7 years ago, I, 35, adopted my niece, 9, from my sister, 26. My parents have health issues and could not take her in, so I took the responsibility. I love my niece and I'll never blame her for my sister's mistakes, but unfortunately, it uprooted my life. It caused a significant sidetrack in my career. I've even had to turn down better job offers because they wouldn't allow me to stay close enough to home. My parents love my niece, but could not take on the responsibility of caring for her, so I don't want to separate them. I had never planned to have children. I even had a boyfriend before I took in my niece, but he also didn't want to have children, and we made the decision to part when I took her in. We have never hid from my niece who her biological mother is, and even though the first few years of her life were hard, 3 years ago my sister started being in our lives again. She told me that she wishes for me to keep raising my niece because I have a better job and can afford it. My sister only has her GED and can hardly afford to keep herself afloat. She usually lives with her temporary boyfriend so she doesn't have to worry about paying for her own place. My sister acts like an aunt to her daughter, not like a mother, and my niece still loves her mother greatly. This past holiday we were at my parents to open presents and my sister gave my niece a present to open. It was a shirt that said, "I'm going to be a big sister," on it. We weren't sure what this meant, but my sister informed us that she was pregnant and that she wouldn't be able to keep it, and she was once again expecting me to take in the baby. My niece was so excited at the news and my parents were happy to hear that they were getting another grandchild, but I was just floored. I burst into tears immediately and I just walked out. My sister came in to talk to me and I told her that I wouldn't be able to take in the baby. I don't want a new baby. I love my niece, but raising her is enough responsibility already. My sister told me that I would be wrong not to take in my niece's brother. She didn't mean to get pregnant. Apparently she was on birth control and she doesn't know who the father is. My parents couldn't take on a baby either, so it's up to me. My sister told me that I should feel blessed, but I don't. When I told my parents and niece, they were all very upset, my niece especially. I don't know what to do, but I can't take in another baby. I know it's my niece's sibling and my sister's child, but it would completely ruin my life. Am I the asshole for refusing to take in my sister's baby after I took in her daughter?
Am I wrong for yelling at my brother at his daughter's funeral? So my brother, 37 male, married his high school sweetheart, but she sadly passed away during birth 10 years ago, which completely broke my brother, and he never recovered from that. Because of that, he fell into drug, alcohol, and gambling addiction and was unable to take care of his daughter. Let's call her Abby. Since he was unable to take responsibility as a father, my husband, 35 male, and I, 34 female, decided to take care of Abby shortly after she was born. We always wanted my brother to be involved, but he was usually too high to know what was going on. My parents tried to get him into rehab, but he would relapse every time. So we were the ones who saw Abby's first steps, her first swimming lessons, who walked her to school, and who bought her first bike. When Abby was 7, she was diagnosed with stage 3 leukemia. Nothing was too far away or too expensive to try, and we saw every specialist that we could find, and it got better for a while. At 8, she was cancer-free, but about a year later, it returned even worse. Again, we tried everything, but she just got worse. My brother visited her at the hospital once. It had taken my parents and my husband and I to get him there. He saw her and immediately left. 3 weeks later, Abby died. Both my husband and I were there and held her. The funeral was 2 weeks later and my brother showed up. He was clearly high and out of it and started yelling about how we had taken his daughter away and how we were the reason why she got sick and died. We were all very emotional, but I just couldn't believe he was actually that far gone. My dad tried to get him to calm down, but he just wouldn't stop. So as he tried to get my brother away from the crowd, I lost him. I yelled at him. How could he just abandon his daughter, his wife's legacy, and not even visit her in the hospital as she was dying? My husband stopped me, but I couldn't calm down. I was so hurt about what he said and hated him so much in that moment. My mother later told me off and blames me for ruining the service, and so does most of my family, and I think they are right. My husband has not said much since then, so am I wrong here?
Storytime about when I thought my laser hair removal nurse was complimenting my butthole. After lockdown ended in my country, there's been a huge sale at my local laser hair removal clinic, and so I thought, fuck it, I might as well go for it. I paid for my 10 visits and set off for the first one, a little nervous but excited for my new hairless body. Now, I decided it would be a great idea to get a full Brazilian, all the way down from the front to the back. Pretty normal, right? The lovely nurse comes in and gives me a brief heads up, explains how it all works sort of thing. When she comes back in, she decides that we're going to laser away the hair on my butthole first. All well and good, right? The instructions I'm given are, lay on your right side and use your left hand to pull up your bum cheek. So here I am, lying on my side, him pulling up my bum while this lady sticks a laser on my asshole. Now, on my left hand, I wear this gorgeous silver ring with a bright blue gem. It was handmade by my bestie's boyfriend, so it's pretty unique. So this lady saw my gorgeous ring and decided to break the awkward silence and said, "That's a cute ring you have there." And of course, I happened to forget that I was wearing the damn ring. It just made sense in my head that the nurse was complimenting the ring on my asshole. Yeah, I know. So, still on my side, I tell her, "Thank you, it'll be a lot nicer when it's hairless, lol." Cue the awkward laugh and then silence, until I realized that she was not, in fact, talking about my ass. We finished the rest of the appointment without speaking and I dashed out of there as soon as possible. I'm still recovering.
Am I the asshole for making my mother apologize to a woman she called fat? Today I, 17 female, and my mother, 46 female, were going out for a walk. On our way home, we saw an old woman sitting on a bench. She was on the heavier side. My mother whispered to me, "Oh my God, look at that woman." I was confused because she was just minding her own business. She said, "Look at her legs, look at all that fat. I wonder how her knees can support her weight." I asked her to stop because it was rude and also we were close to her, so the poor woman surely could hear everything. However, she didn't stop. She replied rather loudly this time, "I hope when I'm old, I won't become this fat." I was horrified, and by the woman's expression, she definitely heard my mother. She didn't, so I insisted many times, and out of ideas and in desperation, I went up to the woman and apologized for what happened. I looked at my mother, but she kept quiet, and I was so embarrassed. Without much thinking, I said, "Mom, you have something to say to her, right?" She looked furious, and after a long time, she mumbled out an apology saying that she didn't mean it. She made us go home before we could even hear the woman's response. My mom was so angry and said that I put her on the spot and I humiliated her. She said, "What kind of daughter can do this to her mother?" and ended up crying in the kitchen.
Story time about how my neighbor is stealing my packages, stalking me, but denies everything. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I moved into a really nice apartment 3 weeks ago. It's a 1-bedroom apartment and the building has a bunch of amenities. There's even a doorman in the lobby. I felt super safe when I moved in, but 2 days after I moved in, weird things started happening. I'm lucky enough to make content for a living, which means I get sent a lot of packages to my apartment. On the second day that I moved in, my friends were over and helping me unpack everything. Suddenly, we noticed that my front door was open and 2 of my packages were missing. I locked the door and could have sworn that I had left the packages right there. I looked for them everywhere and couldn't find them. Later that night, after my friends went home, someone rang on my doorbell, but when I opened the door, no one was there. It happened a second and third time. Finally, I went online and ordered the Ring doorbell. I finally installed it, and you wouldn't imagine the things I caught on camera. At 2 in the morning the following day, I see a strange man ring my doorbell and run away. This guy was in his early 30s, wearing a black hoodie, black pants, and he had a tattoo on his pinky finger. Couldn't really see his face though. When I saw the footage the next morning, I was really scared. I took it downstairs and I showed the guy at the lobby. He told me that it was probably someone who got into the apartment and not to worry about it. I mean, they always tell you not to worry about these things, but this is the kind of stuff that you do need to worry about. A few days later, I was expecting a package. I decided to go run some errands while I waited for the package to arrive. Finally got the text message saying that it was delivered to my front door. But when I show up to my front door, the package is not there. I go straight to my Ring camera and I see that the same guy had taken the package. I was furious. I went downstairs and showed the video to the guy in the lobby, and he told me to contact management. Called them, but they didn't answer, so I left an email. Sent them the 2 videos I had, but they took a week to reply back. Meanwhile, this guy continues to come to my apartment, ring the doorbell, and leave, and steals most of my deliveries. Luckily, during Christmas, I flew home to be with my parents. I knew I wouldn't be receiving any deliveries, but I still kept watch of my Ring doorbell. At 1 a.m., I got a notification from my Ring doorbell that someone was there. It was the same guy, in the same exact outfit. He pressed his ear up against my door, trying to hear what I was doing. Woke up my parents, showed them the footage, and they were horrified. My dad called the building management, and he finally got through to them. He asked to get footage from the cameras in my hallways, but they told him that the cameras didn't work. Then my dad insisted that they find the guy who was doing this. Management said that they didn't recognize the man in the video. They told me that he probably didn't live in the building. My parents insisted that they change all the locks locks on the doors. They said it would be a huge inconvenience for them because it meant a lot of money, that they would have to issue new keys to every tenant in the apartment. That's when my dad told him that he would involve his lawyer, aka my uncle. The building management basically ghosted me and my parents, and eventually I had to go back to my apartment after the holidays. Told my parents I would be fine and that the guy would probably never come back. Boy, was I wrong. 2 days after I arrived back to my apartment, everything looked totally normal. My apartment building had a really nice gym, and that's where I would go work out. While I was on the treadmill, I see someone outside of the gym door, and when I saw who was standing there, I recognized him as the person in the videos. He was wearing a black hoodie and black pants. He wasn't looking straight into the gym, but he was hovering by the door. I literally jumped off the treadmill like a cat, went straight to the door, but when he saw me, he started running away. I was ready to attack this guy. When I finally opened the door, he was gone. But this really made me angry. It meant that I was being watched at the gym and at my own apartment. It didn't feel safe. I was paying $2,500 a month for my one bedroom, but it didn't feel like a home. I decided not to tell my parents because I knew this would totally freak them out. Went back upstairs to my apartment and got ready for bed. At 11 p.m., I got another notification from my Ring doorbell. This time I could see him pressing his ear up against my door again, but this time I could see part of his face. He had a nose ring and a neck tattoo. I took a screenshot and sent it to my building management. That's when they told me that it could possibly be the person that lived in the second floor, that they couldn't be sure and they couldn't really just show up to someone's apartment and accuse them of something like this. Because I'm so stubborn, I told them that I would handle it myself. The next morning, I got dressed and went straight to the second floor. I knocked on every single door on the second floor, and they were pretty much all women. Finally, this guy opens the door and he has a nose ring. I asked him if he'd been by my apartment, but he denied it. He basically acted like he had never seen my face before. He acted so well that I started doubting it was him, even though I could see he had a nose ring. He had a purple hoodie on, which covered his neck, so I couldn't tell if he had a tattoo. Apologized and went back upstairs. I decided to go to the gym once again. But as I'm working out again, I see the guy in the black hoodie outside the door. But this time I wasn't gonna let him get away. Ran to the door, and when I opened it, he was halfway gone. That's when I decided to chase him. Instead of running out of the building, he ran up the stairs. I knew exactly where he was going. Here's the problem. He was much faster than me. When I got up to the second floor, he had basically disappeared. I knew that this guy lived on the second floor. I went straight to his door and knocked. Of course, he didn't open. Stood there for a few seconds contemplating what I should do. Suddenly, a few doors down, a door opens. Out comes this really beautiful girl. She starts asking me if I was okay. That's when I broke down. I started to cry and I told her everything. She invited me into her apartment and she gave me a glass of water. Then she confirmed my worst fears. She told me she'd been having problems with one of her neighbors, that most of the girls on her floor were complaining about the same thing. Apparently, I wasn't the first person complaining to management about this one person. She showed me all the emails that she had sent management about this.
Storytime on how I slept with my best friend's husband on their wedding day. Okay, so boom. I have a best friend and we've been best friends for 10 years. I love her and care about her, but I have one huge problem. I'm in love with her soon-to-be husband. It's complicated. But let's call him John. Rewinding 10 years back when I met my best friend, I also met John. He was actually my friend first and I really liked him. I told my best friend about him and wanted to get to know him more, so I invited him to come out to the movies with us. Well, by the end of the night, my best friend made a move on him and they ended up kissing. My heart was broken, but when I was in the car with my best friend, she said that we weren't dating yet and it was fair game. At that point, I distanced myself from him because I felt weird about the whole thing and they eventually started dating. About a year later, one day I was alone with John. And on this day, everything changed between us. Okay, so boom, like I said, about a year later, one day I was alone with John. He actually told me that I was the one he wanted, but thought since I invited him to the movies with my best friend and that she made the move, he basically thought I was passing him on to her, my friend. I told him, no, that's crazy. I liked you. And we both laughed and hugged it out, but that hug was pretty passionate. The chemistry and overall energy between us changed, but we never acted on it. Now, fast forward 10 years later, on their wedding day, we were all in the same hotel, but different rooms getting ready. When it was time for all of us to get ready, all the girls went into one room and then all the guys went to the other. My best friend sent me to her room to get a charger, and when I entered the room, John was there. I told him I was sorry that I barged in, and he was like, yeah, that's not a problem. But then he walked up to me and, okay, so boom, like I said, I told him I'm sorry for barging in, and he said, yeah, that's not a problem. But then he walked up to me and said, I don't know, I just can't help it. Every time I see you, I almost wish it was you. And I know y'all gonna hate me for this, but literally for 10 years, I've been fighting off my urges, but at the moment, I just couldn't. I was in love with him and he's not married yet, so fair game, right? Well, we ended up doing the nasty and it was very passionate. Then I went back to the girls' room and acted like nothing happened. I feel like shit, but I can't help but be happy that we at least shared that little moment together. I mean, y'all, I always liked him. We never acted on it again, but now I'm just wondering if I should say anything or should I just leave it alone and never do it again? What should I do, y'all?
Story time about how I got stuck in an elevator with my ex and we ended up doing the dirty. My ex and I broke up in 2020 during COVID. Disclaimers, not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. Our relationship was really toxic. You know, the usual. He was super controlling, jealous. He would try to control everything I did, who I would hang out with, and he even envied my career. After dating for 6 months, I told him that we should reevaluate our relationship. I actually had no intention of breaking up with him. I literally just wanted us to sit down and talk about our relationship, talk about what we wanted for it, and if we could see ourselves together in the future. Well, he took this as me saying that I wanted to be with other guys, so he instantly broke up with me and gave me no chance to talk. He told me I wasted his time and that he had rejected really hot girls in order to stay faithful to me. I knew this was a sign that we shouldn't be together, so I simply let him leave. A few days after that, he started sending me messages on Instagram asking me why I was going out. I told him he needed to remember that he was the one that broke up with me and that he had no right to ask me anymore what I was doing or who I was hanging out with. Then he sent me a drunk voicemail telling me that he would never find anybody like me, which he's totally right about, and for me to give him another chance. This is when I had to make a really hard decision. I chose to block him, delete his phone number, and delete him out of my life. I decided to work on myself, so I started going to the gym every single day. A few weeks later, I'm on the treadmill and I see my ex walk in. He knew that was my gym and he signed up to it. I won't lie, I was really flattered. The first thing he did was come up to me and try to strike up a conversation. I really had to resist the temptation to talk to him. I told him that right now wasn't a good time since I was working out. I started seeing him every single time I went to the gym after that. Our relationship had always been really toxic, so I wouldn't have put it past him to start stalking me. Even though I had done a lot of work to get over him, part of me still really liked him. Every time I would see him, I would get butterflies, and I was actually flattered by the fact that he was following me around, which I know sounds terrible. But every time he would try to talk to me at the gym, I would just politely tell him it wasn't a good time, which he surprisingly respected. So the gym I go to is actually pretty fancy. There's all these different classes, so I decided to sign up to a few. Well, the instructor of this class was really good looking. After every single class, the trainer would always try to talk to me. Every time he would pass by me at the gym, he would say hello and just talk to me. And of course, I would literally sit there and have 5-minute conversations with him, whether or not my ex was around. After about a week of me talking to the trainer, I get a message from my ex on Instagram. He starts asking me if I'm interested in the trainer, and of course I said no. I told him that he needed to leave me alone and stop watching me at the gym. That's when he confessed his feelings and told me that he was still in love with me, and that he would do anything to get back with me. Luckily, I stayed strong and told him that I needed him to respect my space. The following day when I saw him at the gym, he tried to give me a hug. It was super awkward and I actually told him not to. The trainer came up to me and asked me if everything was okay in front of my ex. My ex, of course, started telling him that he needed to mind his own business. I could tell that the trainer was jealous and I could tell that my ex was jealous. It was super awkward, but I felt really flattered. And it made me really happy that my ex was starting to see the value in me, although it is sad that it took this to make him realize it. Luckily, things didn't escalate, but my ex pretended to leave the gym. When I left the gym later on, my ex was parked next to my car waiting for me. He tried to talk to me, but I just told him I didn't have time. That's when he went in for a kiss. I turned my face away, but he grabbed me and kissed me anyway. He told me that he wouldn't stop trying to win me back and that I was the love of his life. After he grabbed my face and kissed me, I told him that he needed to back off. He told me that he wouldn't stop fighting for me and that I was the love of his life. I got in my car and went home. The very next day, I decided to go to the gym earlier just to avoid my ex. But what do you know? 10 minutes after I arrived, my ex shows up too. I decided I would literally not even make eye contact with him just so that he wouldn't come talk to me. I did a 30-minute workout and I started heading out of the gym. To get to my car, I had to take an elevator down. I get into the elevator and as the doors are closing, my ex sticks his hand in. He comes in and asks me if we could talk. I told him no once again. That's when he pressed the stop button on the elevator. I didn't freak out right away because I didn't think the elevator would get stuck. I decided to give him a chance and I heard what he had to say. Basically, he told me that he loved me and that he wanted to try to make things work again. I told him that I would think about it, but he needed to let me leave. I pressed the button on the elevator, but it wouldn't go. That's when we realized we were stuck in the elevator. Neither of our phones got signal, so there was no way I could call the gym or anybody in the building to help us. Before I knew it, a whole hour had passed and we were still stuck there. That's when my ex started begging me to kiss him. I kept saying no, but that didn't stop him. He went in for the kiss and it just didn't stop. And, you know, we did it. Luckily, someone let us out of the elevator a few minutes later. Long story short, we got back together after that. Now I'm having all these doubts. He's trying to be better, but I can tell he still wants to control me. I want to set boundaries with him, but I don't know how. Also, the trainer is still showing interest in me. What should I do?
This girl literally tried to get with my boyfriend. I've literally never been so mad. As we all know, me and my boyfriend went on vacation to Las Vegas. And one of the things I really wanted to do while we were down there was to go ice skating. Now, the issue is that I'm really good at ice skating. My boyfriend is not good at ice skating at all. Like, he barely knows how to skate. So a lot of the times when we go ice skating, I'll skate by myself for like 10 minutes, and my boyfriend will just be like going around the ice rink really slow, like trying not to fall down, just so that I can skate for a little bit and then I can help him, because I love ice skating. Anyways, so we get to the ice rink, and me, my boyfriend, and two of my boyfriend's friends went with. So before we get on the ice, I tell my boyfriend that as soon as we get on, I'm gonna skate around for like 10 minutes and then I'll help him skate. He said, okay, that's fine, have fun. Cool, dope. So I get on the ice and I'm skating around for like 10 minutes. And after a while, I'm like, why haven't I seen my boyfriend? Where's my boyfriend at? So I look around trying to find him, and then I see him skating with another girl. He was ice skating with some random girl. When I say my blood was boiling, I've never been this mad. So I go over to them and I like look at my boyfriend like, what are you doing? He just gives me like this look. So I'm like, okay, come over here. We go to the side of the ice rink, and he's like, yo, this random girl just came up to me and told me that she wants to help me skate. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I've been looking for you this whole time. Like, she literally just randomly came up to me and said that she wanted to help me skate. He didn't want to seem rude, so we said okay. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Whatever, like, whatever. But I will now help you skate. I will help you. Not her. Not her. So after that, me and my boyfriend are like skating around the rink a couple times. I'm helping him skate. We're having a cute little couple time. And all of a sudden, I see that little girl again. And I literally cannot believe she did this. Like, the nerve, the audacity. She skates on over to us, and she's like, hey, do you want me to help your boyfriend skate? That's my job. As his girlfriend, that's my job. Like, honey, I want to know where you got the audacity from. So I tell her, no, it's fine. Like, I'm helping him. And she skates away. I'm thinking, this is the last of her. She won't do anything else. No, I was wrong. We skate around for like 20 more minutes, and I was on my lady day, so I had to, do some situating in the bathroom. So I tell my boyfriend, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to the bath. He's like, okay, fine. I go to the bathroom. I come back out. My boyfriend is in the corner of the ice rink, like against the wall on the ice, and the girl's just standing there talking to him, and my boyfriend's just sitting there on his phone like, God help me. So I go over there and I'm like, hey, what are y'all talking about? This girl just looks at me and then gets off the ice rink and leaves. Who are you and what's your problem? That is my boyfriend. And then my boyfriend basically told me that he was really weirded out and felt really uncomfortable. And nobody sent him hate. We've been dating for 2 years. He's not a cheat. This was not him. This was just some weird girl who didn't understand respect. Not my boyfriend's fault.
Am I the asshole for customizing my burger? For my niece's 10th birthday a few days ago, we went to a burger place. I'm pretty picky about food, so I thought it would be easier to just take along some of my own stuff. The actual meat is okay, but they do horrible and overly sweet brioche buns. They also have fancy named complex burgers, and it makes the food basically inedible. It is so disgusting. I ordered their most basic burger with just some lettuce, and had brought my own bread, some cheese, and some barbecue sauce. Nobody said anything at the time, none of the staff cared, and honestly I think the guys at the next table were pretty jealous. But afterwards, my sister told me that I was being a total asshole and ruined the evening and drew all of the attention away from my niece on her birthday. My niece didn't seem unhappy, and basically nobody commented beyond, haha, don't you want one of these fancy burgers? I got to eat food that was actually edible, and I don't think I was being an asshole, but I don't know. Was my sister just being weird, or does she have a point? Am I the asshole for letting my son drive to school despite his mum's protest? My son is 17 and a junior in high school. He got his license in October, but obviously there's a lot of restrictions. His mum, we're divorced, will not let him drive unsupervised, meaning she has to be with him. I let him drive my car to and from school and to school activities. She found out and demanded that I stop doing it. I told her that I trust him and he gets to be cool driving a Tesla to school, plus he gets a prime parking spot. Compounding the problem is that he apparently told her to piss off over something and she won't let him drive at all and said that I should follow suit. I told her that's between her and him. I don't want to get involved with my ex-wife's issues with our son driving as a means to control him. That's between them and I will not be adjudicating their conflicts, but am I the asshole?
Let's talk about the most manipulative color in all of color theory, in my opinion. Baker Miller pink. So in the 90s, people got super obsessed with Baker Miller pink. Basically, this guy came out and he was like, I did all this research and there's this one color, Baker Miller pink, and it's shown to calm people the fuck down. It's super anti-anxiety, it's super anti-aggression, to the point where even colorblind people, when exposed to Baker Miller pink, were shown to have the exact same results. They also became really tranquil and they also calmed down. It's just how impressive that color is. So immediately people were like, whoa, there's so much practical application to Baker Miller pink then. So they started painting mental health facilities Baker Miller pink. They started nicknaming it Drunk Tank pink because all these jails painted themselves Baker Miller pink. Even some college football teams started painting the visiting team's locker rooms Baker Miller pink, and people got so hyped up about that they actually litigated against it, and now you have to have the same color locker room for visiting teams and home teams because the visiting teams felt that they were put at such an intense disadvantage because of the Baker Miller pink. But the guy who was doing all this research on Baker Miller pink neglected to mention a very key detail, which is that yeah, the first 15 minutes of exposure to Baker Miller pink, you do calm down. It does have a very tranquil effect. But after your body reaches equilibrium, it actually reacts negatively to Baker Miller pink, almost like it resents the fact that it was forcibly chilled out. And you end up being way more anxious or way more aggressive than you were at the beginning before exposure to the color. So it totally negates the purpose of Baker Miller pink, basically. But he didn't want to like say that part because that doesn't sound as cool. So he kind of like suppressed it, and it was already too late. So now there's all these jails that are Baker Miller pink, and although, yeah, when you come in from intake, maybe the first 15 minutes, you're like, wow, this is a really tranquil jail environment as far as jails go, it ends up hyping you the fuck up, and it's actually probably a huge liability.
I, 29 female, spoke to my parents who ghosted me 5 years ago after my wedding and have now reached out. My husband, 30 male, used to be my boss. About 9 years ago, I started working as his assistant. We spent about 2.5 years ignoring our mutual attraction until we gave in. We then went to HR, who reassigned me, and the whole thing was strictly above board from the time we began dating. I got pregnant about a year later, and my husband and I decided to just get married. While we'd only really been dating for about 1.5 years, we knew each other completely, loved each other, lived together, and there was a baby on the way. We knew how it would look, but I had to leave the company anyway due to problems with my new boss, so we didn't anticipate this causing me any issues, except with my parents. They, 62 male / 57 female, have always been overprotective, so I knew they wouldn't like me dating my boss, and hadn't told them. But I had to tell them if I wanted them at my wedding. We decided to be mostly honest with them, about how it was strictly professional until it wasn't, how the second it got unprofessional we went to HR, how he had never taken advantage of me, but now we wanted to get married, and we wanted them there. We did not mention the baby because I felt that giving them that information in addition to the rest all at once would just break them. I was only about 4 months along when the wedding happened, so the bump was easily hidden by a flowy dress. The wedding itself went off without a hitch, and apart from my mother pulling me into the bathroom shortly before the ceremony to ask if I was sure about this, which I said I was, my parents seemed to take it well. The ceremony and reception were at 2 different venues, and we had to travel from one to the other, and my parents never arrived at the reception. I called them and got ignored, and then my brother called them and they told him that they were going home. I don't remember the exact reason they gave, but it amounted to them being tired and uncomfortable. I tried contacting them after the wedding, but found that I was blocked on everything except email, which I used to send them a long letter essentially saying that I'm an adult who made an adult choice, and I hope they can respect that. 5 years later, I have not heard from my parents since my wedding. My husband and I are not big in social media in general, but I recently posted something for our 5th anniversary in which I mentioned our 2 kids and 3rd on the way. Within a month of making this post, my parents left a voicemail saying they saw the post, and having had no idea that they had grandchildren previously, now want to meet them. I haven't responded, and there have been a few follow-ups since, then asking why I haven't. I don't know what to do, but my gut instinct is that 5 years is too long, and it's about the kids, not about them respecting my choices or relationship. However, I can't help but feel that I am being unfair, and my brother agrees, because I told them in my mail that if they could learn to respect my choice in my marriage eventually, then we could talk. And now I'm retroactively applying a time limit. My entire family despises my fiancé, and I have to choose between them and her. Is she manipulating me, and is there something I'm not seeing? I met my fiancé when I was at a very low point in my life. We instantly clicked and had a whirlwind romance, and I proposed after 3 months and we are now engaged. I feel like my family has never approved of her, or particularly liked her. They are all very educated and work professional jobs, while she's a college dropout who works as a hostess. She's starting a venture of her own, and I'm funding it for her. The problem started with my sister-in-law and my brother. They told me that 3 months was too quick, and that I should date her for longer. They also implied that she's a gold digger. They never used the term. They said this because she doesn't financially contribute. My fiancé isn't particularly fond of my sister-in-law, as sister-in-law is very rich and successful, and fiancé thinks that she is snobbish. The problem escalated when there was a family wedding and my fiancé wasn't invited. She is of a different race, so she accused my family of being racist and said this to my parents' face. My parents never expressed an opinion about her, but that was their ticking point. My sister-in-law and brother added to this and told them about my financial contributions to her ventures and other details about her relationship. My parents said that I am making the wrong decision. I told my fiancée this, and she lashed out. She messaged my sister-in-law and told her that she's a horrible person for trying to wreck our relationship. My sister-in-law once again communicated this to my parents, and they have refused to pay for and attend the wedding. My fiancée says that her family will accept me with open arms, and that we can get married in City Hall. She accused my parents of being elitists, and said that they only like my sister-in-law because she's educated and of the same race. I love my fiancée, but I feel like she's trying to manipulate me into cutting all ties. I don't know what to do, and I don't want to reach a point of no return with my family. Any advice will be appreciated.
To tell me all the painfully embarrassing things that happened with your crush.
I absolutely win this. Oh my god. This still keeps me up at night. I had the biggest crush on this guy, and I was at a friend's house, and he ended up coming over. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my god, this is my one chance to impress this guy. And let me just preface this by saying I'm not working with much. I don't have a lot of talents, but I can do something. So I finally get him alone, and I'm like, this is it, now or never. I look at him, I'm like, do you want to see something cool? And he's like, yeah. And I lay on my back, and he's just looking at me like, what? And I start queefing. I let out a couple of queefs, and he looks at me, his facial expression changed. He looks at me, he goes, this is disgusting. He walks away, texts his mom comes, picks him up. I was so confused because I genuinely thought this was cool. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought queefing on demand was cool.